Odysseus, the epic myth of the hero. 3. He flew to Pieria land, the birthplace of original theft and artful muses, and dropped into the sea, and in the swells he shifted shape to a cormorant bird and plumbed the depths to the bosom of the teeming salt sea, water beating on his wings, catching fish, riding waves that rose past man's endurance. But when the isle he sought from far appeared, he stepped to shore from the iodine sea, a god to walk the path to treasure-haired Calypso's cave. The forest burgeoned all around with alder, poplar, cypress-smelling sweet. Far-winging birds in ambush roosted high, owls and hawks and long-tongued sea-going crows, their hunting grounds the fish-filled swirling sea. Around her hollow cave the cultured vine budded ripe bunches of joy-giving grapes. 4 springs from rocks gushed glittering waters, which fell in twisting courses each direction. In fields fresh plowed, violets and parsley bloomed. To chance upon her caves, the gods themselves would take delight and marvel deep in heart. He stood regarding all, the messenger, the killer of Argus. She was within. At once into her cave Hermes entered. The hearth with fire roared, the air with cedar incense hung, and strains of song from pleasing voice announced she sensed some god or man's approach, as with a golden comb she worked her loom. Right off Calypso knew him for a god, though distant were the ties that made them king. Now Hermes looked, yet did not see within mega-hearted Odysseus, who sat in tears, groaning, heartbreaking, gazing out upon his endless, barren, salt sea prison walls lapping along the shore. And then the noblest of goddesses, Calypso, bid great Hermes sit himself in splendor on a shining throne, and asked, "For what, dear Hermes, gold and staff and all, has brought your revered self so far away to this, my home, not graced by you before? Speak what you think. My heart does me command to do whatever I may do in fine. If such a wish for you I may perform. But first, receive all due a dear guest friend." This said, the goddess set her table with fulfilling ambrosia and mixed red nectar. He ate and drank, the herald Hermes, and once he'd feasted and pleased his soul, he spoke. "You question my coming, goddess to god. These words to you precisely I'll relate, for you are bid perform a solemn task. I come not of my own free will, but Zeus's, for who would freely cross such barren wastes of sea? So far from cities mortal men have built to worship gods with hecatombs. Yet none dare balk when Zeus commands his will. I say to you, your man must leave at once. Most miserable man of all who fought 9 years around the walls of Priam's city, and only in the 10th did Troy succumb, and weary fighters rode homeward, bound by ship, but they blasphemed a goddess on the voyage. Athena whipped up evil winds and mega waves. Surviving war, good comrades drowned in droves. Zeus commands you now to send him on as soon as possible, and hinder not his fate, nor precious homecoming divert, for still his cherished fate remains to see, and come unscathed back home to his high-roofed house in the heart of his father's farmlands." This said, she shuddered, noble Calypso, and then she uttered bitter words, saying, "You gods are cruel and jealous of joys of others, and most of all of goddesses who delight in bedding mortal men openly and loving them as husbands. As when Orion clasped the rosy fingers of dawn, you gods at leisure were aghast, until in Ortygia Artemis the chase brought the gentle lovers down by arrow. As when Demeter, radiant and blonde, yielded her heart to Iasion, mingled love and bed in fresh-plowed fields, But not for long their love remained a secret, and Zeus by thunderbolt pierced his heart. You gods begrudge my heart now of this man. He must pass on. This man I saved from death, a castaway, clinging to a spar, sole survivor of a swift ship that Zeus by thunderbolt split mainmast to keel. Sailing lost and forlorn on iodine seas, all died save he of his good companions, and here he drifted by wind and by wave. I loved him and cherished him and promised to make him immortal, unaging all his days. But such is not the thought of Zeus who bears the aegis, he whom one cannot avoid and best not cross. Odysseus, Zeus's to rule and judge, shall sail the taming sea. But I myself cannot convey this man, for neither ship nor men at oar have I, to send him sailing the broad ocean back. Yet I will set my wisdom to the task, and much-turned Odysseus no longer hide, so all unscathed he may go back and see the fields and groves of his father's country. And once again the Argus killer said, Thus send Odysseus away in haste, and mind with awe the wrath of Father Zeus, lest he vent his thunderbolt against you. This said, he slipped away. The herald Hermes and Calypso ran to mega-hearted Odysseus, with Zeus's plan weighing on her mind. She found him near the shore. Her tears were dry, but sweet lament for home transfixed him, seeing she no longer pleased him. Nights he slept by guilt beside her in her spacious cavern as she wished, but days he spent by tide pools near the shore in cries and groans and pains, his soul to rend, and streaming to the swarming sea his tears. Behind him now she stood and called his name, that noblest of goddesses, destined one. Lament with me no longer, weary life, for I release you from my hideaway. Fell trees with bronze and join them square into a raft of logs. Then raise a deck above to shield you from the slapping waves and sail across the wine-dark, cloudy sea. I'll stock in plenty grain and water and red wine to curb your thirst and hunger, and a cloak to keep you warm. I send you far away, so all unscathed you can return back home to groves and fields of your father's country, if this does please the gods who rule in heaven high, who more than I have scope to plan their will and see it done on earth. This said he shuddered, hard Odysseus, and then he uttered measured words, saying, You must have something else in mind, goddess, and not my freedom, urging me by raft alone to cross the yawning mega-gulf of grievous sea, where even ships well-rigged and blessed by Zeus do sometimes not reach port. I will not cross your will nor spurn your gifts, if only, goddess, that you swear to me a mighty oath, your plan conceals no trick. This said she smiled, that noblest of goddesses, Calypso. With her hand she stroked his cheek. Truly what a doubting rogue you are. How mean your wits when thus you accuse me. So listen now, by earth and broad serene heaven on high, by Styx's flowing waters, the gravest oath by which the blessed gods can swear, I have no other thing in mind except your freedom. I'll plan for you, as I would for myself if such a need as yours were on me. For though my mind is troubled, my heart is not of iron cast, but is compassionate. This said, she left. That noblest of goddesses and hard Odysseus followed in train. Calypso led him to some hollow caves, and once within, he sat where blazing Hermes had upon a golden throne. Long since, upon a visit from the godly smith Hephaestus, Calypso got a dining table with a wheel concealed in each claw foot. Hephaestus worked enough intelligence into the wood so that it rolled in place upon her whim. Now of its own accord this table moved and stopped in front of brave Odysseus. By will alone the Zeus imposed her thought upon thin air and shaped a meal of spitted lamb and golden apples, wine they call the blood of bulls, and bread like mother baked. Calypso took her place, and female slaves in open-breasted Cretan garments then set out ambrosia and cups of nectar for her, for the gods enjoy the smell of mortal human food, but not the taste. They bowed their heads to one another and reached for this rich feast with both their hands, dark eye never taking leave of blue, and enduring Odysseus addressed his mega-hearted soul in wonderment. Nothing but kindness in her eyes, and though this board she set for me each night for years, almost as many as I spent around the walls of Troy, I wonder still just how she makes it come to be. She laughs when I accuse her of theft, of spiriting some poor king's meal away from frightened servants, forced to face their master's angry wrath, clanging empty pots and pans. She laughs when I suggest that something came from nothing. She laughs, but softer, when I wonder if she changes air itself to meat and wine and bread and fruit. Is that the secret of the gods, that anything can shift its shape to any other thing with deathless knowledge? Learning all would make a man a god? She only laughs, as do musicians asked to bear their source of natural talent in a word. This meat is good, but lambs from Ithaka are savory in ways that take a lot of grass near home in spring to make. This wine is good, but grapes of Ithaka yield juice that takes more time to come of age than just a heartbeat. This bread is good, but grain from Ithaka has the taste of that dear land that gave me birth. Don't the blessed gods yet tired of tinkering with fate and forestalling my homecoming then? She reads my thoughts, and so I never ever need to sing in human voice for her. This said, and versatile Odysseus drank his wine and broke his bread in bites, and once they'd pleased their soul with meat and drink, Calypso led him by the hand unto the nethermost recess of her resplendent cave, where carved into the living rock were steps that led up to a nook and spacious bed. The scents of all her island lingered in her bedroom, fresh with every stirring of the stillness by a nod, a gesture, or caress. Calypso crossed the floor and knelt before a cleft in rock that held a single candle. Licking thumb and forefinger, she pinched the wick of flame. The light gave out a velvet hiss in dying. Now Calypso rose like vapor, turning toward Odysseus, her treasured hair in curling avalanche, bound in lovely headbands hammered out of gold and studded fine with bloody red sea stones. She ran her delving fingers through her hair and tangled them in swirls of gold. The nymph of sea at twilight flicked her fingers overhead. Her headband came apart in showering sparks and brief illumination before it vanished in a rising mist. Her hair unfurled in locks of swelling night and seemed to pulse like pent-up roiling storm clouds. She reached across her breasts and loosed her brooch. Her shimmering white robe slipped off her fine-cut shoulder to the floor in heaps around her feet. She stepped away as would a shoot burst green and free from fresh-turned soil in spring. She was as fine in form as any horse that bore a sceptered king, as grand as fully armored fighters clashing shields in war, as trim and won as ships full sail before a homeward breeze. Her breasts were moons exciting speechless ecstasy. Noble Calypso raised her hand to take Odysseus. Her skin was smooth and dry and cool and dark as shade. He drew her close and kissed her full wise lips that tasted like the lovely strangeness of the churning, foamy sea. Calypso knelt before enduring Odysseus and pulled his robes free from his war and sea-scarred limbs. Her stunning kiss engulfed his grateful vision like a lucky glimpse of mystery. He ran his fingers through her treasured hair, now soft as down, now scratchy at the tightest curls, and spoke to his great-hearted soul. Who is this creature here, who nods so sweet and low? I've seen her shift her shape to birds to fly across the mega gulfs of teeming sea, to fish to plumb the ocean depths, to flowers, beasts, and stones, and most of all, to women fair from every race of mortal men on earth, upon my slightest whim, save one. Calypso claims she dare not manifest my dear Penelope, for fear the look of love I give will break her heart. If she can take whatever shape she will, then which is most her own? This woman here before me? Like a sailor knows when rocks lay under keel by how the current breaks and surges all around, but cannot see them with his skeptic eye, I know that never yet have I laid eyes upon this woman's truest shape in full, this goddess, this mega-human spirit. If goddess truly, she must know my thoughts as fast as they occur to me, my doubts, my hates, my love of old that will not die, and she cannot replace. Yet only kindness has she ever shown me after saving me from watery death. Penelope has likely dropped me from her heart by now. What is this love of mine that chafes, demanding more than tender words from pretty lips? If she were woman, she could be my wife, but she is goddess. My fate is past the living or the dying, hers to love and hold, or not. Odysseus then smiled and looked below with lidded lips and eyes, and ran his finger down along Calypso's ear. He faltered slightly, sighing through his teeth before he gently pinched her fulgent lobe and stretched his body whole, as would a lion lying in the sun. They two delighted, locked in love inside each other, never ceasing until the dawn. She broke the silence first, Calypso, sweet and noble goddess, with these wistful words. Zeus-born, son of Laertes, versatile Odysseus, is it truly homeward that you wish to go? Despite the odds, you joy at hopeful prospects, but if you knew deep in your gut the griefs the gods have planned for you, sailing and toiling on the surprising sea, before you reach your father's country, you'd stay with me in this hollow cavern and be immortal, though you yearn all night and day to see your wife and long for her all your deathless seasons. She cannot be my match in face and figure, for how can mortals for beauty with goddesses vie? Then wise Odysseus replied to her and spoke his dare for all to hear. Mistress, goddess, don't be angry with me. I've known for long that thoughtful Penelope is not your match in figure or in face, for you are divine, and she mere mortal. But all day long I wish and yearn for home, and hope against sad hope for my return. So if some god intends to wreck my voyage on wine-dark seas, I'll bear it, for I have a heart inside my chest that stays the course. I have already stressed and striven much in wave and war. Let troubles to come be added to those already in tow. But when the child of the morn brought light, rosy-fingered Eos, he rose at once, Odysseus, and donned both frock and cloak. The nymph in shimmering white robes dressed herself so delicate and lovely. Round her waist she clasped a comely golden belt of gems, and with a headband bound her treasured hair. Then she set her wits to help and guide mega-hearted, anxious Odysseus. She gave an axe of bronze to him, sharpened on both sides, well hafted with beautiful olive wood, a perfect fit to strong hands, shaped by plow and oar and spear. She gave a wood-eating adze to him, and led him on the path to her hidden isle's furthest reach, where grew a grove of tall trees. The alder, the poplar, the silver fir all towered in the sailing breeze. Once they arrived, Calypso left him and walked back home, but Odysseus started chopping trees and swiftly flew his work. Hewn by bronze, 20 in all he felled, and these he shaped and smoothed and measured straight. Later she brought some augers, Calypso, the noblest of goddesses, and he drilled all and fitted each to each by pegs and linchpins, and hammered the logs together tight. Odysseus joined a raft long and wide as a merchant ship, the deck protected by a steep gunwale against the surging waves. He shaped a mast and fixed a yardarm to it. By wood-eating adze he carved a rudder to steer with. Many mats of wicker he wove, and then upon the timbers laid them down for cushion and shelter from sun and wind. Later she brought some cloth to make a sail, Calypso, the noblest of goddesses, and he stitched it well and raised it high. He tied both stays and lines to sturdy cleats, and by levers inched his raft down to the shore. All work had been completed in 4 days, and on the 5th she sent him from her isle, Calypso, the noblest of goddesses, and in a sweet-smelling garment she clothed him. 2 skins she gave contained black wine, and in another bigger one sweet water, and another held both fruit and jerked meat, enough to last a long, uncertain voyage. Then Calypso, shedding tears as though she were a human woman, spoke these English words. You only feel a prisoner here because you will not bend and be my loving equal, wielding deathless powers over everything, no longer worshipping, but worshipped. Your wit is staggered by eternity. There is self-loathing deep inside your lasting heart that stays your finest chance at happiness. You, as few men have seen, have tasted paradise, and yet you sail away and leave it in your wake. You love me, this I know. No touch so soft and sure, to feel me as I am could lie, and yet you leave. Your strength is far beyond your own best good, and well could leave a better taste behind. This said, she wet her finger in a tear and brushed it on the lips of grave Odysseus, who shed his own hot tears and said, Goddess, mistress, love beyond my bounds, you say my strength will be my own undoing? I fear no strength in me, but fear activates my mind. I know I bear a heart for hardship as it happens, with no need to know before it pounces hard. Wave and war have taught me this. To know it all, however, a memory that grasps the future with the past, immortal life that can but con its fate, still human, after all my dreams and wishes come true, save one, and still to be a part of this gray world, above but not beyond the law of kill to live, and love still confusing the flux of things that can but change and give us pause to mourn. My son I have not seen since he was at his mother's breast, and soon he'll be a man. What can he think but that he's never seen his father, when he has? For long I've gazed into his eyes, when with his mother we 3 lay in bed and wondered what the day ahead would bring when he became a man. And then wave and war tore me from my home. Telemachus, my son, the thought of you will wring my last full drop of devotion as hero or as mule. Calypso wiped a tear and said these words, You've dreamt of times and places I could be your wife. For this you've whispered late into my ear. Once I'd made you lose all thought of true Penelope, but never would I stand between Telemachus and you. Sons and fathers should be heroes to each other. Therefore farewell. I'll calm the winds as best as I am able, but stronger gods than I as well drive winds, according to their whim and will. But bear this in your heart, Odysseus. There'll come those sleepless nights when, happy as you are, you'll think of dark Calypso, and who and what you could have had as yours. United at their souls, they kissed farewell. The goddess summoned a gentle south wind, and in the trailing breeze he spread his sail, mega-hearted, joyful, Odysseus!